Smiley from the Energy Boutique with your energy forecast for Friday, March 15th. Okay, so we have the moon in Gemini all day, so our mental plane is kind of busy, but we want to keep things light and fluffy. We're not really looking for intensity as far as, meaning and purpose and the bigger, greater, grander plan. Instead, we just want to kind of socialize. We want to multitask. We want to keep ourselves busy, but in a light and fluffy way so that our minds can kind of bounce around and have the opportunity to explore some light-hearted topics and themes. Now, whether or not we're going to be able to stay in that shallow end is definitely remain to be seen. We are in Pisces season, so the depths in which we're able to actually go into our emotional and spiritual realm, that varies. Again, I'm going to give you the visual of big, huge waves. We're either on the top of that wave, we're riding that wave, or we're down in the deepest, darkest pit of that wave actually forming. So although we're going to kind of make an extra effort to keep things light and fluffy and fun, there may be moments, especially later on today when we have an interaction with Saturn, where there's a little bit of a harsh reality check that pushes us into the deep end. Nonetheless, our curiosity is piqued. We are looking outside of ourselves for fun, for stimulation, for validation, for confirmation on new ideas. Sometimes we have to look outward in order to kind of pick and choose what triggers what activations we tend to focus on that will eventually lead to a aha moment, a light bulb moment that of course is going to put us in a situation to explore new topics and themes. I also just want to remind you that we are building towards the first quarter moon that will be taking place in Gemini energy here on Sunday, March 17th. And so the building of this energy, because we're just dipping our toes in the very first degrees of this Gemini energy, we are going to kind of, again, try to keep things light and fluffy. We will see an intensity kind of reach that halfway point here tomorrow. And then, of course, the huge intensity of having an aha moment, making a choice point, reaching a decision point, and maybe even a little bit of an action point here on Sunday under that first quarter moon. So there are 8 different aspects taking place here today. All 8 are involving the moon, which means that this is a moon day. And because a moon day is a time to emotionally refine, define, realign, this is going to be an interesting dynamic because we have different thoughts, different ideas, different perspectives emerging because of the Gemini energy. The very first thing that we kind of explore is that the moon in Gemini is going to semi-square, creating a little bit of tension and conflict with the North Node in Aries energy. So again, the North Node is trying to get us on the right path to kind of pursue a different path, if you will, that will reach our soul's mission, our soul's purpose, our soul's potential. We need to be a little bit independent. We need to break away from the things that are essentially sucking the life force energy out of us. But because this is a semi-square, there isn't a lot of clarity. We aren't really sure what the path, the plan, the strategy should be, especially in initiating the first kind of action. And so we're not really kind of focused on, let's say, getting a specific plan together, as we are just wanting to be open-minded about what the different paths could actually look like and what that initiation cycle or stage could actually mean for us if we felt aligned, mind, body, and soul, to actually take said action. So there's a little bit of confusion here. We're not really seeing the ability to move forward, but again, we are all up in the mental plane here, so this is a time to just kind of observe, to explore, and to not expect a whole lot of, let's say, puzzle pieces snapping together to give a firm plan, to give a firm vision on where it is that we are going to be initiating and beginning this brand new cycle. The moon is then going to trine Pluto. Pluto is the great transformer, and an Aquarius energy, an air sign, and Gemini energy, an air sign. This is what gives us our trine. This means that emotionally speaking, we are starting to unpack a little bit of a new narrative. We're starting to see ourselves from a different set of eyes. We're starting to see the potential of new cycles, which is a very welcomed energy. There is going to be an intensity, not only in our heart space, but in our head space, to really examine where it is that we're shifting our, let's call it, goals. We're shifting our attention to the goals in which we want to reach. We're also shifting our perspective to seeing ourselves in the best kind of light. So this is an emotional and mental change and transformation of the inner dialogue, of that inner narrative that we now are kind of seeing is a little bit more encouraging, a little bit more supportive, even semi-excited for what is to come. The moon is then going to semi-square Chiron, the wounded healer, in this Aries energy. So again, just as we kind of grasp this new vision of our potential, of who it is that we're becoming, what it is that we're actually preparing for and capable of, that's when we start kind of picking ourselves apart, breaking ourselves down. Instead of focusing on the positives, we're focusing on the negatives. We're focusing on our weaknesses. We're focusing on our vulnerabilities. Now, as unpleasant as that may sound, we can learn a lot from where it is that our mind actually goes in the midst of actually feeling safe, secure, supported, excited, inspired about something. The minute that dark force energy kind of creeps in and takes control of our mental plane and our emotions, how interesting it is how quickly we're able to dive into breaking ourselves down, speaking fears into our dreams, and really just opening up the wounds that many of us thought that we had healed as far as our insecurities and vulnerabilities go. The moon is then going to get into the boxing ring, square off with Venus. Venus is the goddess of love, beauty, worth, pleasure, and money. She's in Pisces energy right now, all consumed with different thoughts, different feelings, especially where relationships, money matters, and her overall realm and reality is concerned. Why is that? Well, because Pisces energy is ending something. We're closing the door on something, likely the emotional and karmic weight that we have accumulated and continue to carry into our each and every single day. The whole point is to purify ourselves from that, cleanse ourselves from this heavy emotional weight, again, in preparation to enter into the new astrological calendar as light as possible. Of course, the square doesn't feel good. It is going to highlight tension and conflict within us, and this particular energy is definitely going to have a heart activation. If you need to go back and listen to this week's ascension forecast to understand where the energy is manifesting in our physical form, would definitely be recommended to do so to understand what heart activations are all about. But right now, we're kind of conflicted with our wants, with our needs, with our desires. Part of us trying to talk ourselves out of these new realizations of what it is that we want for ourselves, what we want to build, what we want to create. Because of course it's easier to settle, to not have to boss up to new roles and responsibilities, to not be accountable for our own damn lives. That's the easy way out. But of course, we're going to have a very hard time trying to convince ourselves to settle in life because we're entering into a new karmic chapter. We're moving into a brand new cycle, which requires us to boss up and be a version of ourselves that we haven't been before, that comes with a totally different role and responsibility that we have to act out in order to receive some of the, let's call it, outcomes in which we're hoping to actually receive. But right now there's this conflict. And again, Gemini energy, represented by the twins, we're always at odds with ourselves, with other people, with thoughts. There is one narrative promoting change, promoting this boss up, promoting us to realize what it is that we want more of and that we actually feel like we deserve it at this point. But again, that comes with a huge weight, a huge role, a huge responsibility that many of us at this particular moment aren't really energetically prepared to do. So again, that other voice is coming in, trying to convince us to just kind of abandon our wants, needs, and desires for change, for something bigger, and settle for this present reality. So it's going to be very interesting to see which dialogue, which, let's call it, narrative is going to win out of this one. Because if we find that the darker narratives have more power, in that dark narrative, I mean, stay in a state of paralysis, not take action, not do anything, not make any changes, versus the narrative that is actually encouraging and supporting us to make changes so that we can live in a realm that not only looks good, but feels good and is actually aligned with our higher self. It's going to be very interesting to see which narrative actually wins. Either way, we have a lot to learn about our current emotional position, about our current mental position, where it is that they're either in alignment or out of alignment. And of course, from those realizations, from that framework, we know exactly what it is that we need to do in order to anchor into the more positive inner dialogue, the more positive narrative that, of course, is encouraging us to take action and make moves to boss up. The moon is then going to make a positive interaction with the sun. The sun, of course, in Pisces energy. I actually like Pisces and Gemini energy working together if it's, kind of being supported by other planets, because of course, the Gemini energy is the lower level intellect that our emotions are currently kind of walking us through to add logic and practicality to, I'm going to say, try to interpret and explain to ourselves some of the things that just don't make sense. And again, emotions, for the most part, don't make sense, and spiritual downloads don't make sense, and glimmers of hope, vision, and dreams don't make sense. And that's where the sun in Pisces is pushing us to abandon the want, need, and desire to come up with an explanation for a lot of the mystical things that are currently happening due to the recalibration that's going on in our physical bodies with our energetic body, which has taken a huge upgrade, now kind of being resewn, realigned into the physical form. So the imaginative energy that is coming from Pisces energy and the ability to dissect it, intellectualize it, really apply logic and practicality for a path, a plan, a strategy to form from the Gemini energy, this could work very well for us. And again, when the moon and the sun come together in any kind of interaction, there's a new emotional awareness. There's a new aha moment. There's a new inspiration, new motivation that now we have to explore. So it is a good energy for us to be kind of realizing that something is being triggered and activated within us in order to kind of be pushing ourselves into a new path to explore a new idea that, again, with this intellectual energy of Gemini energy, we could actually piece together very, very quickly and really explore the details of what needs to happen in order to actually bring some of these visions, these goals, into the physical realm, into form. The moon is then going to make a positive interaction with Neptune, of course, in Pisces energy as well. So this is a little bit of the same kind of vibe that I was kind of explaining between the Pisces and Gemini energy. However, Neptune, which is more about our dreams and our creativity and our imagination, and albeit our delusion and our, spiritual karma as well, this is going to put us in a good vibe to feel a little bit spiritually renewed. It's going to put us in a vibe to kind of feel like our brain is working for us, not against us. And we are definitely tapping in to new ideas, to new downloads, to a new pull, if you will, in a direction that, of course, our higher selves are trying to get us in alignment with as we dive into a brand new chapter, a brand new cycle. So this is very much like a stimulating energy. We feel refreshed, we feel renewed, we feel semi-excited about pursuing these new ideas, at least exploring what these new ideas could actually become. The moon in Gemini going to sextile, beautiful interaction with Mercury in Aries energy. So Mercury, of course, ruler of the mental plane, rules over the Gemini energy that the moon is currently in. The moon is our heart space. Mercury is our head space. We are sextiling, which means that our heart and our head are working together. Mercury being in this Aries energy, it's a spitfire type of energy. We're looking forward, not back. We are pressurizing that mental plane to come up with new ideas, to figure things out, to choose, to decide, to align with a path, a plan, a strategy that, again, we're feeling very good about at this particular juncture. We may not have all the details. We may not know how to even go ahead and start pursuing such an idea, but we're excited about something. Our heart is feeling good about it. Our head space is feeling good about it. They're working together in order to advance an actual vision, an actual goal, an actual dream that not only we're feeling excited about, that at this point, we should be able to actually articulate, to communicate, to express outwardly. We should be able to share these thoughts, these ideas at this point, actually be able to put it into words, which of course is the first step of manifesting and bringing something to life. So the last thing that we have going on here, and this is going to be around 8 p.m. The moon is going to get into the boxing ring and square off with Saturn. So earlier at the intro of this video, I said, tougher energy a little bit late in the day. This is what I was talking about. First of all, square does not feel good. It highlights tension, it highlights conflict, it highlights confusion. And with Saturn, Mr. Karma himself, you know that this is a harsh aspect, which means that he's bringing some weight. He's bringing a harsh reality check. And what this is going to do, first of all, is going to bring us down from this lovely little vibe that we had been building for the majority of the day with new ideas, with new thoughts, with new potential for ideas and motivation and inspiration. But this is definitely going to bring us down a couple of pegs. It's going to make us feel a little bit frustrated. It's going to make us feel overwhelmed, again, with the roles, with the responsibilities that we will be required to boss up into if we want to actually make a change, if we want to pursue something new, if we want to bring goals and visions and dreams to life. So let me just say, later on in the day, we are going to feel a little bit blocked in being able to think clearly and being able to speak clearly. We are probably going to be a little bit more introverted, which is a weird thing for this Gemini energy. But again, Saturn restricts us and really emphasizes where it is that we have to pump the brakes a little bit. And of course, that doesn't feel so good. However, this harshness, this introvertedness that doesn't feel so comfortable in this Gemini energy is needed in order for us to take a realistic approach to some of the ideas, inspirations, motivations, glimmers of hope, glimmers of vision that we were downloaded with earlier on in the day. So we have to be careful that we're not going to let ourselves go full-blown negative Nancy, that we're going to just, scrap the vision, the dreams, that we're just going to call the day a wash. But we do need to kind of pull back from being too out there, too excited, too overwhelmed with thoughts, with emotions of these new realizations. We need to pull back. We need to ground ourselves, get very real and raw and vulnerable, whether or not we have the excitement, the inspiration, the motivation actually cultivated to a proper degree within us to actually see some of these changes, some of these adjustments, some of these transformations through. Again, we are going to get a little bit of a Debbie Downer type of mood and attitude here, and we are going to move a little bit inward, and we are going to have to kind of fight it out with the negative narrative that is going to try to overcome us and keep us in a state of paralysis. But the goal here is to boss up. The goal here is to exercise as much power and control over our thoughts and over our emotions as we possibly can, so that we don't allow ourselves to go to the darkness of that deep, dark pit. And instead, we just take a time out. We step back. We don't kind of allow the dark force entities to take control and to totally ruin some of the ideas, some of the glimmers of hope, some of the renewal energy that we experienced earlier in the day. And instead, we just act as the observer. We can see where the negative narrative is turning. We can see the want, need, and desire to kind of check out from bossing up to these roles and responsibilities. And when we act as the observer, we have the ability to nip that programming in the bud, really rewrite it with something encouraging, something supportive, something to empower us, to make us feel prepared on what it is that we're going to have to do to make these major changes and adjustments in our physical realm.